I'm curious. Think about your family of origin, the arrangement of family members in your early years of life. Could you raise your hand if you have only one sibling, just you and one other sibling? Oh, okay, quite a few. How about those who have two siblings? Okay. Those who have three siblings besides yourself? Anyone with more than three siblings? And those who have 0 siblings? The minority, but there's a few. You're not alone. You're not alone. How about, did anybody grow up with a father that had 4 wives simultaneously, an unknown number of sisters, and 11 brothers? No, just Joseph. Just Joseph. Okay, all right, that's all right. Well, if you are looking for a soap opera quality story full of love and heartbreak, rags to riches, and suspense hanging on the edge of murder, look no further than the Joseph narrative, which extends from Genesis 37 through the end of the book in chapter 50. There are other sibling relationships that we read about in the Bible: Cain and Abel, Isaac and Ishmael, Jacob and Esau, Moses and Aaron and Miriam, Mary and Martha. And Jesus even has siblings named in Matthew chapter 13. But there is something striking about the story of siblings in this text from Genesis 37. I am the oldest of 3. My sister Amanda is almost 3 years younger than me, and my brother Tim is 7 years younger. We didn't always get along when we were kids, but I did text both of them on Thursday to say that I am grateful that none of us ever felt the impulse to throw another into a cistern and sell the other to the Ishmaelites, as far as I know. I feel like I've largely taken my sibling relationships for granted. We don't see each other in person terribly often, usually over Christmas and Memorial Day weekend, when we make sure to carve out time to get our families together somewhere or another. Tim is geographically closer and lives in York, so we see each other a bit more often. And I anticipate seeing Amanda a little more frequently over these next 4 years because Dakota's college is not far from where Amanda lives in the Shenandoah Valley of Virginia. It's important for us to see each other, to catch up on life events, to take pictures that mark time and growth and change, and apparently to wear pink and purple and brown. And I have learned that we deeply and intimately know each other. Not just know about each other, but we have shared overlapping memories and experiences from childhood, and that's part of what creates our identity as siblings. We also share a bunch of DNA. Apparently, full biological siblings share an average of 50% of their DNA. Half siblings share about 25% of their DNA, as do a grandparent and grandchild, or an aunt or uncle with a niece or nephew. For Amanda and Tim and I, and perhaps with family members with whom you identify, these genetic similarities and shared environmental experiences help to explain some of the ways that we look a little bit alike. And we have mannerisms that are eerily similar to a gesture or a way of speaking or behavior exhibited by another. So not only do we know each other in unique ways, but that DNA means we're kind of part of each other too. And for that, I am grateful, usually. There are many other things that influence family, and particularly sibling dynamics: birth order, the quality and health of parental relationships, divorce, remarriage, economics, geographical proximity, moral and ethical values, trauma, a death of a parent or sibling, social and cultural and generational shifts and changes. Here is a family that some of you may recognize. Yes, some. I know I'm dating myself with some. The television sitcom called Family Ties aired from 1982 to 1989. A description of the plot, taken from Wikipedia, only because I could not have really written it any better. Set in Columbus, Ohio, during the Reagan administration, the show depicts Stephen and Elise Keaton, played by Michael Gross and Meredith Baxter, as baby boomers, liberals and former hippies, raising their 4 children. Ambitious, aspiring, millionaire entrepreneur Alex, played by Michael J. Fox. Fashion-conscious, gossipy Mallory, played by Justine Bateman. Tomboy Jennifer, played by Tina Yothers. And Andy, Brian Bonsall, who was born midway through the series. Married in 1964, Elise is an independent architect, and Stephen, a native of Buffalo, New York, is the station manager of WKS, a local public television station. Much of the humor of the series focuses on the cultural divide during the 1980s, when younger generations rejected the counterculture of the 1960s and embraced the materialism and conservative politics which came to define the 1980s. Alex, Michael J. Fox, the eldest, is a young Republican who embraces Reaganomics and exhibits conservative attitudes. In contrast to her feminist mother, Mallory is an apolitical and materialistic young woman, presented as a vacuous airhead, fodder for jokes and teasing from her brother. Jennifer, an athletic tomboy and the second youngest child, shares more of the values of her parents and just wants to be a normal kid. Stephen and Elise have a 4th child, Andrew, who was born in early 1985. Alex, Michael J. Fox's character, dotes on his young brother and molds Andy into his conservative image, thus the straps and clothing. Regarding the concept, show creator Gary David Goldman observed, "It really was just an observation of what was going on in my own life with my own friends. We were these old kind of radical people, and all of a sudden you're in the mainstream. But now you've got these kids, and you've empowered them, and they're super intelligent, and they're definitely to the right of where you are. They don't understand what's wrong with having money and moving forward," he described. We chose the name Family Ties for this themes slide for this series, giving a nod to the TV series, but more importantly, identifying and acknowledging that family connections are complex and complicated. We are each interwoven into a fabric of families, and I choose that plural form, families, intentionally. Most of us are not connected with just one family system. We might live with a particular family in our household arrangement as it exists today, which may be different from the household arrangement as it existed 10 years ago, 25 years ago, 50 years ago. We grew up in a particular family system, perhaps more than one if the family arrangement changed. We might be part of a family system or more than one through marriage. And we feel a lot of things about families. Some of us have had positive, enriching family experiences with parents and siblings and grandparents and cousins. Some of us have experienced significant pain from intentional or unintentional behaviors of family members. Some of us feel close to family members. Others feel fractured and distant. For many of us, our experiences with family might be a combination of all of that. Families can be tied together in ways that elicit love and joy and happiness, and also families can be tied together in ways that might feel restricting, constricting, and all knotted up. There are many details in this story of Joseph that could be fascinating to explore. Is it historical or metaphorical? What are the cultural and contextual factors that might lead the author and audience of this story to hear it in a very different way than we do today in the 21st century? What might we say about the roles of men and women, of empire and power? Do you feel today more like you resonate with Joseph or Jacob or one of the brothers? And which one? But there are two things that hung with me specifically as I read and reread this text. One of the things I noticed as I spent time with just this first chapter of the Joseph story was the reality that everyone played a role, by choice or by circumstance. Certainly the brothers usually get called out, and rightly so, for their actions. They had it, and they plotted to kill Joseph. Even though Reuben and Judah tried, at least a little bit, to redirect the others from a first-degree murder scene, still, Joseph is shipped off, sold off, far away for good. His mother, Rachel, has died. His father, Jacob, clearly exhibits favoritism. And Joseph, for his part, appears to lack some wisdom or maturity to be aware of how his dream interpretation and comments are being received by others. It's a bit of a tangled up mess of feelings and relationships and actions. And each person in this tangle has played a role and would have work to do if they were interested in or able to move towards healing. The other thing was that I had not noticed before and discovered I kind of liked the cliffhanger at the end of this chapter, and I very intentionally stopped us there. All of Jacob's sons and daughters got up to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted, telling them, "I'll go to my grave mourning for my son." And Joseph's father wept for him. Meanwhile, the Midianites had sold Joseph to the Egyptians, to Potiphar, Pharaoh's chief officer, commander of the royal guard. Jacob thinks that Joseph is dead. The brothers know, or at least assume, and the readers know that Joseph is not dead. We observe deep, deep grief on the part of Jacob. There is maybe relief on the part of at least some of the brothers, perhaps tinged with a little guilt, maybe some sorrow. And how is Joseph feeling, I wonder? Those of us familiar with the entire Joseph narrative know where Joseph ends up. If you don't, I encourage you to read Genesis 37 through 50. And even if you do know the story, I would suggest you might have forgotten some parts and would find it interesting to read again. But the reality is, most of us are hanging right here in this space. We don't know what the next chapter holds in our own stories. We might have some ideas, but we really don't actually know. We don't know what family conflict might resolve in a way that we don't expect, or what might become a hurdle or a challenge that we didn't foresee. We might not know what the next chapter holds, and for what it's worth, the next chapter of Genesis is spicy. But we know that the story is not over. On Friday, I attended one day of the Peace and Justice Studies Association conference at Swarthmore College. I wasn't presenting, I was just there to soak it in. Swarthmore, if you've not been there, is a beautiful campus. And we gathered in the morning in a massive open-air amphitheater surrounded by oaks and cedars and birch. We sat on cold rock ledges with deep green grass woven in between. And Padraig Otoma read one of his poems. That's who is at the front, at the lectern in this photo. If you're not familiar with his poetry, I would recommend it. That experience of hearing him read a poem alone made it worthwhile. But also, at a meal, I sat around a table and talked with two friends who did not know each other before that morning. And we lamented about some things in the world, things in our lives. And one said, "But still, I carry hope." And I said, "And that, I think, is resistance." And then the third said, "Yes, hope and joy." And so, wherever you are in your swirling family system of love and irritation and joy and anger and care and brokenness and togetherness and aloneness, know that there is more to the story that is yet to be revealed. We carry a hope of transformation, lives that can be transformed by love in ways that are unexpected and often unseen. The pain doesn't necessarily go away, but it may shift. The anger doesn't always stop, but it may soften. The door may open for a moment of joy and a glimmer of hope that resists, that pushes a bit, that nudges a family narrative that has been told over and over and over again. And through the light of that cracked open door, the next chapter may begin. May it be so.